Hello, welcome folks to the second edition of the online discussion for the Prelims test series. So we're resuming with the second edition, as I said. The first question here is choose the correct option on the basis of following statement. This lava erupts in large quantity of extremely fluid basic lava. Explosive activity is almost absent in this type of lava eruption. So your answer should be Hawaiian eruption. It's one of the most explosive activities that the world has witnessed. And if you've gone through your coaching Leong very correctly, you would be in the knowledge of this. So this question वैसे देखा जाए तो it's a very straightforward question. मगर हो सकता है कि आपको बाकी ऑप्शंस की वजह से इसमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम्स आए बिकॉज काफी स्पेसिफिक ऑप्शंस है. Pelian, Hawaiian, Volcanian, Strombolian. So थोड़ा बहुत आपको कोचिंग लियोंग में से you have to refresh your memory and then after that you can go along by answering the question. Answer such type of questions only when you know the correct answer to this. Don't take a chance because these are fact-based questions and therefore there is a great chance that if you don't know it, any kind of logical estimate or guesstimate would fall flat on its face. So I'd suggest that you kind of evaluate your options before you actually mark the correct option. Now, there are a lot of questions which have been asked based on earthquakes and secondary waves and primary waves. Regarding primary waves and secondary waves, there's a good chapter in NCERT. You can go through that chapter and you would know the difference between what are primary waves essentially and what are secondary waves. It's a little confusing, but once you get the differentiation correctly, I don't think you would face any problems as regards getting correct answers for any questions based on waves. The third question, as we see, it is about natural vegetation. Tall grass and short trees. The term parkland or bushveld perhaps describes this landscape better. Trees shedding their leaves in the cool dry season to prevent excessive loss of water through transpiration. Some trees have broad trunks with water storage devices to survive through the problem of drought, such as guavas and bottle trees. See, understand one thing, that option 3 and option 4 are giving us a clear-cut indication that this is a dry landscape. Look at option 3, trees shedding their leaves in the cool dry season to prevent excessive loss of water through transpiration. अब कहाँ होता है? कौन सा ऐसा एरिया होता है जहाँ पे trees will actually economize their usage of water? कब होगा ऐसा? जहाँ पे water का shortage होगा. अगर water का shortage है तभी करना पड़ेगा. मतलब definitely we are talking about a dry season, dry landscape. If you look at statement number 4, some trees have broad trunk with water storage devices to survive through the problem of drought, such as baobabs and bottle trees. Again, they are talking about broad trunks and water storage devices. Obviously, it means that the precipitation in this area is very less. So this is something you don't even have to go through option number 1 and 2 to discuss or to get a correct answer to this. I would say that option 3 and option 4 are giving you enough fodder to arrive at Sudan climate as the right answer. Because Mediterranean climate में ज़्यादा precipitation का problem नहीं होता है, as all of us know. वहाँ पे wine making होता है, wineries बहुत सारी है. So if you look at Spain and Italy, you have Mediterranean type of climate, which shouldn't be a problem. Monsoon climate is primarily found near the tropical regions, especially India. So obviously, and as I said, precipitation नहीं हो रहा है. अब monsoon climate में there is heavy precipitation. So obviously this is not the right answer, and hot wet equatorial climate is also not the right answer because equator is generally associated with a lot of rainfall. Wetness के साथ तो associated है ही नहीं. यहाँ पे आपको clear cut दिया हुआ है कि it's a dry landscape. So ये question बहुत ज़्यादा easy था answer करने के लिए. I hope that you've gotten it correct. If not, then visit your NCERTs and visit your coaching Leongs again so that you get a better understanding on the topic. Now then, there are some certain questions regarding the planets and their ascending order and their period of revolution. See, in these kind of questions, you just have to mug up some facts and you just have to have a mental image of how the planets are positioned. Otherwise, you cannot really answer this question based on elimination or based on your power of derivation. You really have to mug up such facts. So, solar system and the placement of planets is something that you will have to read from your NCERTs or from other reliable sources and just get it concretized in your mind. It might require 2, 3 or 4 readings but won't take much time. I don't think so. Then there was a question on Vulcan, Greek mythological god and stuff like that. See, such questions are put in the paper only to flummox you. Such questions probably are not going to be asked in UPSC. UPSC will not ask you a question based on Greek mythology. They will ask you a question based upon only planetary systems and their formations and the phenomena that go behind making such planetary systems. Why we have put such a question in the paper is primarily because we want to give you more fodder so that you have better fodder when you attempt questions. See, any kind of information is good information. There is no such thing as a bad information. So you need to understand that the first statement is sort of irrelevant from UPSC's perspective. Vulcan is Greek mythological god and it's known as the god of volcanoes. But it's good that if you know it. Now look at the second statement. Geologists and volcanologists have asserted that volcanic activity has nothing to do with crustal disturbances. Now this is something that you need to know. The first statement was just put in there to make the question more tricky for you, not to test your knowledge. It is the second question which is actually the question statement. Geologists and volcanologists have asserted that volcanic activity has nothing to do with crustal disturbances. Okay, so basically the answer to this is none, because both of them are wrong. Second one is definitely wrong, because volcanic activity has definitely got something to do with crustal disturbances. Whenever there are crustal disturbances, there is friction, there is release of energy. Whenever there is release of energy, it is associated with magma and lava movements. Understand one thing, that all the plates that are moving around the globe are moving on the pyroclastic material, that is magma. Obviously, it will have some relation with release of energy at any point of placement on the planet Earth. So the second statement is definitely wrong. So what does that do? That eliminates options C, B and C. What is left is option 1 and D. In a situation like this, I think it's better to leave a question like that if you don't know about Vulcan as the Greek mythological god. But in UPSC, the question will be much more simpler. They'll arrange the options in such a way that if you are able to eliminate second option, you would be you would get the right answer eventually. So this was about testing your factual knowledge as well as your concept. Now some questions are about science, geologists and their proponents and nebular hypothesis. This is directly lifted from NCERT books. I hope you have gone through your NCERTs in a thorough manner and you've been honest enough to read your NCERTs. If you've done that, you'll definitely get such questions right in the first instance. Moving along, what we see here is there's a question on delta formation on the east coast of India. Now in the last test series, in the last test also, we've seen that there were some questions regarding perennial rivers, peninsular rivers and delta formation. Now this is a continuation of that. Deccan Plateau is eastward sloping, that is western coast is elevated compared to eastern coast, hence there is no ground available for delta formation at Western Ghat. See, in the last discussion also, I have given you a brief idea as to how the Indian landmass is tilted in the it has a bias towards eastern coast. So obviously any water that is flowing is eventually going to unload itself into the Bay of Bengal. That's one thing. Another thing I told you is that as the second statement also says, most of the western flowing rivers originate in Western Ghats. Now if they travel towards western coast, then they have to travel lesser distance than eastern flowing rivers, and hence they can't collect large amount of silt and flow with very high speed compared to eastern flowing rivers. The statement at the outset, guys, it might sound very lengthy, but you just got to focus on this part. Now if they travel towards western coast, then they have to travel lesser distance. I told you in the last discussion also, when rivers travel lesser distance, what essentially happens is they pick up less load from the sediments. When they pick up less load from the sediments, what happens is they have less load to deposit when they slow down. So obviously there is no lateral erosion, or there is limited lateral erosion, or there is restricted vertical erosion. And because of this limited nature of erosion, what happens is sediments available for deposition are not available in a huge manner, and that will also result in delta formation only on the west coast, not on the eastern coast. So the second option is a giveaway actually. Even if you don't have enough knowledge about the first one, the second one is a giveaway. Obviously, as we look at it, both the options are correct. Again, straight away lifted from NCERT. No need for any external sources. UPSC is going to fiddle with options within the realms of this knowledge only. It is not going to go beyond that, guys. Understand one thing, that too much of reading will also hinder your preparation. You need to be very simple. You need to stick to NCERTs. Once you stick to NCRTs, everything becomes clear. And once you're thorough with your NCRTs, then you can refer other reference books. All the concepts are embedded within the pages of NCRTs. Get your concepts right, guys. Okay. So again, you can see some questions on planets and their meaning in Greek. This is just for, I would say, this is for your entertainment purposes. This is for enrichment of knowledge. This might help you in your mains answer writing. But such questions, I don't think that UPSC will ask. Maybe a couple of options, but you can never be so sure about what the commission might think of asking next year. So we're trying to compensate for every unpredictability as far as concerned, as maximum as possible. And therefore, we are also injecting our papers with such questions. You should be prepared from all angles. And as I said, just one revision of our papers at A. Shah's Institute will help you revise your entire subject curriculum in a better fashion, in a hard-hitting manner. So it's advisable that you go through all your questions in a detailed manner, in a systematic manner. Okay. Moving along, we see that there are some questions again on Venus and solar system. As I said, planetary positions and their movements and the other geographical phenomena associated with that. I think Gocheng Liang and NCRT would suffice. No need to go beyond that. Once you've done that in a better way, I don't think you would be facing any difficulties as regards eliminating options and as regards selecting options. Now there's a nice question on river rejuvenation. So river rejuvenation, the correct answer to that is a negative movement occurs when there is an uplift of land. Okay. When there is a river rejuvenation, steep-sided gorges also develop in the upper course of the river. Okay, entrenched meanders develop when river rejuvenation happens in the lower course of the river. If you look at entrenched meanders developing in the lower course of the river, a good example of that would be Jhelum. Okay, although it's in its youthful stage, but since it is flowing in its lower course, it is developing an entrenched meander over there. And so that's some sort of an anomaly, and that kind of is used to trick students into thinking that नहीं ये तो हिमाचल की रिवर है, जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में एंट्रेंस विंटर होने का तो सवाल ही पैदा नहीं होता, मगर ऐसा नहीं है. वो फ्लैटलैंड में से जा रही है, वो वैली में से जा रही है, वो उसके लोअर कोर्स में, इसीलिए वहाँ एंट्रेंच मींडर है. और ये चीज आपको एनसीईआरटी में भी मिलेगा, ऐसा नहीं है कि एनसीईआरटी में नहीं मिलेगा. सो इट्स अगेन आई एम स्ट्रेसिंग अगेन, गो बैक टू योर एनसीईआरटीज, रिवाइज योर एनसीईआरटीज and revisit your NCRTs as much as possible, guys. So which glacial landform forms basket of X topography? It's drumlins, obviously, and it's found in the European countryside. It's given in Gocheng Liang on page number 52, chapter number 6. So such landforms associated with rivers, winds and glaciers are taken in detail and discussed in a holistic manner in Gocheng Liang. I would suggest that you guys go through that chapter, because that chapter is not just interesting, but gives you a lot of further inputs for your examination. Such questions could occur in the examination. Next year, I am hoping that UPSC would definitely ask a question on glaciers, as we discussed in the last session on our test series also, because glaciers are retreating, hot topic. So coral formations, coral bleaching, glacier retreating, flash floods, urbanization, these are hot topics as far as geography is concerned. Everything related to cloud burst, cloud formation should be studied in detail. That is my one advice to all the aspirants. I can see that there are some questions on nebula. I can see that there are some questions on primary waves, secondary waves. So obviously this is again a function of how well you've read your NCRTs. These questions are straightforward questions. Just go through your books and you'll be able to answer them. There's no sort of elimination required over there. There's no sort of applicability involved there. All that is required is good reading. If you've read your NCRTs thoroughly, then it becomes a cakewalk for you. We have mentioned the chapter number as well as the page number as regards references and sources are concerned. We've also given you a brief explanation as regards the answers of the questions are concerned. So I hope this will suffice. Moving along, we can see some questions on basic lavas. Okay, basic lavas, again, I'd suggest that you see the difference between what are basic lavas, what are other types of lavas, what are igneous rocks, what are intrusive igneous rocks, what are extrusive igneous rocks, what is the viscosity of lavas, how does it affect landform formation and stuff like that. I would suggest that you go through Gocheng Leon because it has a detailed explanation on those concepts. That would definitely fast track your preparation. Okay, so here such questions again, I'd say that this question again is a very straightforward question. अब इसमें correct answer क्या है? Correct answer is only option number 2. Basic lavas are highly fluid and spread over long distance and create thin sheets. Whereas पहला statement क्या है? Basic lavas flow quietly and not very explosive. They are rich in magnesium and silica. अब आपको सिर्फ इतना पता है कि बेसिक लावास का विस्कोसिटी लो है, तो आप सीधा सीधा आपको बाकी चीजें पता होने की जरूरत नहीं कि वो थिन शीट्स क्रिएट करता है कि नहीं करता है. You don't have to necessarily know whether they are explosive or not. You don't have to know whether they are rich in magnesium and silica or not. All you have to know is whether basic lavas are viscous or more viscous or less viscous. By their definition, by their very definition, basic lavas are less viscous and therefore they are highly fluid. And on if they are highly fluid, then question statement number 1 is automatically negated. So what are we trying to check here? As examiners, we are trying to check whether you have basic information regarding basic lavas or not. We are not trying to check whether you know their iron content, magnesium content or silica content. All we want to see is whether you know the basic concepts or not. But to make sure that we introduce some trickiness, we try to baffle students by introducing such sounding statements, such complex sounding statements. So fluidity के बारे में आपको पता है, viscosity के बारे में आपको पता है, जो कि NCERT में आपके दिया हुआ है. I don't think ये question बहुत tough है. In fact, this was one of the easiest questions. Moving along, there are some questions. एक question है erratics के ऊपर. This is again straight away lifted from Gocheng Leon. Erratics के ऊपर question है ये. इसका answer the answer for this is C. The presence of erratics in large numbers is said to be beneficial for farming activities. See, now any geographical concept or phenomena related to farming has come into the spotlight. Why it has come into the spotlight? The ideology behind that is very simple, that today farming is undergoing a drastic paradigmatic shift. Why is it undergoing that shift? Why is the yield increasing or decreasing in some areas? It's because of global warming and climate change. So any concept or any phenomena which affects farming in a big way or in a small way should be considered to be important for UPSC. This was a straightforward definition kind of a question. UPSC will definitely ask you definition kind of questions, and for that, therefore, you have to be ready. So you have some questions regarding glaciated lowlands and landform formations, and of course some volcanoes also, surface waves. I can see that there are some questions of regarding eskers. Why are eskers usually devoid of trees? The answer to that would be, as eskers are made up of highly porous sand and gravel. Water is rapidly drained off from their crests, and hence not many trees are seen. अभी trees नहीं है क्योंकि पानी नहीं है. अब पानी नहीं है because of the typical formation of eskers, because of their peculiarity as a geographical concept or a phenomenon. जहाँ पे पानी drain off हो जाता है. So obviously this is very easy for you to understand, isn't it? I don't think this is again a straight away definition sort of a question. Again, Gocheng Leon becomes your go-to book for this. If you read it even once, I'm not kidding you guys. If you read it even for once, you would be able to answer questions like what are eskers, what are erratics, because they are straight away lifted from the book. Highly technical in nature, but need only one good reading. That's it. Moving on, I can see there are many questions with respect to river erosion and transportation. Again, river erosion is one of the important aspects that one has to consider. Considering that we have Yamuna Action Plan, we have Ganga Action Plan, Clean Ganga, Namami Gange, and we also are going to interlink a lot of rivers. So the focus on rivers in next year's geography questions would be great. Like this year, they just asked one question regarding Brahmaputra and its tributary, which was straight away lifted from NCERT. But I would say that it wouldn't really hurt to read a little more on rivers, because you might have a detailed question on rivers next year. It is an important aspect. It's going to decide your fate at UPSC. Therefore, I don't think you should handpick certain topics and leave certain topics. So glaciers, rivers, flash floods, sedimentation, erosion, all this has to be studied in detail. If they end up asking you a similar or a simple question, then good enough. I think then you are in the driver's seat. But if they end up asking you a tricky question, then After looking at such questions, I think you are in the driver's seat again. Okay, but all you have to do is revise your test thoroughly and go through your online discussions also thoroughly. Now, let us look at the next question, question number 30. The predominant action of the river in this course is vertical corrosion. Rapids, cataracts, and waterfalls are mainly found in this course of the river. Which course of the river is being referred to? Obviously, the answer to this would be upper or mountain course. यहाँ पे आपको ज्यादा कुछ सोचने की जरूरत नहीं है. रैपिड्स के बारे में आपको पता है, वाटरफॉल्स के बारे में पता है. वाटरफॉल्स वही होंगे जहाँ पे टोपोग्राफी बहुत ज्यादा अनड्यूलेटिंग रहेगी, जहाँ पे टोपोग्राफी में ग्रेडियंट या स्लोप ज्यादा रहेंगे. ये जनरली माउंटेन कोर्स में ज्यादा होता है. हमने विजुअल रिप्रेजेंटेशन भी अगर हमने इसका किया, हमने एक मेंटल इमेजरी बनाने का भी ट्राई किया, तो we would definitely understand that waterfalls is an integral phenomena associated with mountain courses. And when I go through the option A gives me the answer, upper or mountain course. There is no need to go through the other options as well, because middle or valley course will have meanders. It will not have waterfalls or cataracts as much as it would be associated with mountains and upper course of the river. So this again was a straightforward question. I don't think it should have been a problem for you to answer. Moving along, we have again some questions on primary waves, secondary waves, earthquakes. Now, why is there so much focus on earthquakes, seismic activity, and waves? It's very simple. Is because the Himalayan zone, which is called as the suture zone also, that zone is experiencing a lot of seismic activity. In fact, a while back only Delhi experienced an earthquake of magnitude 5.1 on the Richter scale. What does this tell us? That there is constant release of energy in that part of the country wherein Himalayas are crossing from west to east. So what we see is in the northern part of the country seismic activity बहुत high है. इसलिए earthquake के ऊपर question आ सकता है. अगर earthquake के ऊपर question नहीं आएगा तो शायद हो सकता है कि आपको Richter scale और Mercalli scale के ऊपर question आ जाए, या प्राइमरी वेव्स या सेकेंडरी वेव्स के ऊपर क्वेश्चन आ जाए, या हो सकता है कि फोकस पूछ सकते हैं और एपिसेंटर पूछ सकते हैं. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन एपिसेंटर एंड फोकस. सो ऐसे क्वेश्चंस के लिए आपको रेडी रहना पड़ेगा. बेसिक क्वेश्चंस ही आएंगे, बट एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आएंगे तो अर्थक्वेक के ऊपर आएंगे. ठीक है, इससे ज्यादा यू डोंट हैव टू बिकम अ जियोलॉजिस्ट, यू डोंट हैव टू बिकम अ ज्योग्राफर, you don't have to research too much into this. I think again Gocheng Leong and NCRTs would suffice, or a little bit of article reading, whichever article appears in the newspapers regarding earthquakes, that would suffice. Moving along, we can see that there are certain questions regarding how the river bends and which forces are acting on the river. Then there are some questions on sunspots, again primary waves, secondary waves, Gutenberg discontinuity, Lemon discontinuity, and Moore-Vivek discontinuity. See the Earth's crust, Earth's mantle, upper mantle, lower mantle, outer core, inner core. That is what the Earth is composed of, and they are found at various levels at various depths, and they are associated with magma. Now, what happens in this topic is basically some geographers have also come up with other discontinuities, which actually are irregular as regards the boundaries between these crust, mantle and core are concerned. Irregular है, regular नहीं है. तो जहाँ पे irregularity आ जाती है, उस irregularity को जिस geographer या geologist ने discover किया था उसके नाम पे. These irregularities are at various depths and various levels. So you can see Gutenberg discontinuity, Lemon discontinuity and Moore-Vivek discontinuity. The answer to that would be 312. Moore-Vivek पहले आएगा, उसके बाद गुटेनबर्ग आएगा और सबसे अंदर लेमन डिस्कंटिन्यूटी आएगा. Now, how to understand, how to remember? This is a peculiar way. If you remember, Darren Lemon was an Australian batsman, if you remember, right? Now he used to bat lower down the order. तो वो बहुत नीचे के स्तर पे आता था बैटिंग करने के लिए. तो आप ये समझ लीजिए कि लेमन डिस्कंटिन्यूटी भी बहुत नीचे के स्तर पे आएगी, क्योंकि ऐसे क्वेश्चंस में you have to associate that with something which you already know. These things are basically a function of your memory. These things are not concept based or analysis based mostly, and therefore I would suggest that, like Lemon, you understand other things also. Okay. So moving along, we have some questions on outer planets and what are giant planets, which are also called as the Jovian planets. A good explanation of that would be found in your NCRTs, especially for question number 40. NCRT is enough because the question is which of these are correct statements. Outer planet of solar system form mostly of the heavier elements like hydrogen, helium and oxygen. These are the outermost. The last four are the outermost. The first four are the इनर मोस्ट। सो जो आउटर मोस्ट है जिसमें सैटर्न आएगा, जिसमें जुपिटर आएगा, वो ज्यादातर हेवियर एलिमेंट्स लाइक हाइड्रोजन, हीलियम और ऑक्सीजन से बने। इनफैक्ट जो सैटर्न के अराउंड हम जो रिंग्स देखते हैं वो भी उसी का एक फंक्शन है। Satellites of giant planets are composed mostly of rock. Now this is something you need to know. You can't really use your power of derivation or method of elimination here. You need to know that the satellites of giant planets are composed mostly of ice, mostly of ice only, not of rock like inner planets. Inner planets के rock होते हैं और जो outer planets है उनके ice से बने रहेंगे satellites. एक basic इसमें चीज है अगर आप सोचेंगे तो, the closer you are to the sun, the lesser are the chances for having ice. The farther you move away from sun, the higher are the chances for having ice as an inherent component of your planet, right? So satellites, जो giant planets के satellites है, giant planets are on the outer side. Since they are on the outer side, there is a higher possibility that their satellites will have ice as a component, right? So you could have used a little bit of power of derivation here, but I would still suggest that you refer to the books instead of making a wild shot like this. But if you have to go for it, then I think one only is the right answer, because two can be eliminated by using the power of elimination. Okay. Now, which of the following determines rate of erosion of glaciers? Now, certain factors or certain metrics are given: velocity of flow, gradient of slope, temperature of ice, geological structure of the valley. And the correct answer would be all four of them. See, rate of erosion of glaciers is also dependent on the velocity of the flow of the glaciers as to at what rate they are dissipating or retreating. Based upon that, it will definitely have a direct impact on the rate of erosion of glaciers. Gradient of slope, obviously if the slope is high, that means the rate of erosion will be higher. Okay, if the slope is less, that means the rate of erosion will be lesser. High slope में obviously under the force of gravity it will come down at a faster rate. ठीक है? Now temperature of ice. Temperature of ice, this is a straightforward thing because temperature of ice is directly correlated with the rate of erosion of glaciers. Because अगर ice कुछ ज़्यादा ही गर्म हो गया तो पानी में तब्दील हो जाएगा, पानी में तब्दील हो जाएगा तो वहाँ से ड्रेन ऑफ हो जाएगा, और वहाँ से ड्रेन ऑफ हो जाएगा तो ग्लेशियर्स का रिट्रीटिंग ज़्यादा होगा और सब्सिक्वेंटली रेट ऑफ इरोजन भी उससे अफेक्ट होने वाला है. Because हमने जैसे देखा water is a big agent of erosion, so you cannot really discount the ability of water in terms of erosion here. So you have to take that into consideration. So this is pretty much straightforward, isn't it? Now geological structure of valley. Obviously geological structure of valley also comes into play as to where it is located, whether it's a ridge or a cliff. If it's a ridge or a cliff, then the rate of erosion will be faster because it will be under higher force of gravity, right? As regards to some plains or outwashed plains which are plain in nature, which are flat in nature, therefore the rate of erosion there will be less. So correct answer would be all 1, 2, 3 and 4. I would say that if you know only a little bit about glaciers and their formation, you'd be able to get this answer in a precise manner. We have also given you the source. It's GC Leon chapter 6 page 48. Go back to revisit that page and revise. So as we move along, what we see is that there is a question on floods. What can be done to reduce the intensity of damage due to floods in flood-prone areas? Artificial embankments can be erected on natural levees. Huge dredgers can be used to deepen the channels to avoid excessive sedimentation. Both A and B, none of the above. The answer is both A and B. Artificial embankments हमने कई बार देखा है कि हमारे cities में भी हम देखते हैं, जैसे मुंबई में भी हमने देखा है कि आर्टिफिशियल एम्बैंकमेंट काफी जगह पे किया हुआ है, काफी जगह पे लैंड रिक्लेमेशन की जहाँ पे हुआ है वहाँ पे भी एम्बैंकमेंट किया हुआ है. हालांकि वो सी वाटर के लिए है, so that the land is not inundated with coastal waters. But even in terms of rivers, what they do is there are artificial embankments created. Once artificial embankments are created, water does not go out of its course. So that is one way to tackle a situation in a flood-prone area. Now, huge dredgers can be used to deepen the channels to avoid excessive sedimentation. Dredging activity, अगर आपने जाना होगा, तो dredging activity is when dredgers are used to deepen the channels. How do they do it? They dig into the riverbed. When they dig into the riverbed, they break open a slice of the riverbed, and then that sediment is transported to the land area. So, हो क्या रहा है यहाँ पे? आपका जो रिवर चैनल है वो डीप होते जा रहा है। एक स्विमिंग पूल को इमेजिन कीजिए, एक स्विमिंग पूल का डेप्थ अगर 6 फीट है, उसको आप और अगर गड्ढा करेंगे और नीचे की तरफ जाएंगे तो 7 फीट हो जाएगा, 8 फीट हो जाएगा, राइट। तो उसी तरह ड्रेजिंग भी किया जाता है ताकि रिवर चैनल्स को हम और डीपन कर सके। एंड व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन यू डीपन द रिवर चैनल्स, the water carrying capacity of the rivers goes higher, and obviously therefore both the statements are right. अगर आप स्टेटमेंट 2 के बारे में आपको नहीं भी पता है, लेट्स अज्यूम दैट hypothetically speaking you don't know about it, used dredges can be used to deepen the channels. Deepen the channels की जहाँ पे बात आ रही है, obviously we are talking about creating higher water carrying capacity. Obviously this is going to be the right answer, this is going to be a right statement. But if you look at the point number A, artificial embankments can be erected on natural levees. See, artificial embankments are created on natural levees, and we have seen it in our country, we have seen it in our hinterland also. Whenever you are traveling on the highways, you also must have seen it. So both 1 and 2 are correct. In case आपको अगर B नहीं पता था या dredging activity के बारे में नहीं पता था, फिर भी you could have answered this by just going through the wordings of the question. Deepen the channels. Just have to go through the question statement very carefully and very slowly. Answers are enmeshed in those statements only. You don't have to go really far from that. So I would suggest that apart from the extensive readings of your NCERTs and coaching Leon's, I would suggest that when you actually come back to these questions during your revision phase also, you read them as if they are your revision material, and you read the question statements thoroughly, carefully, slowly and systematically. You'll get the correct answer, guys. You just have to be very patient. Don't get excited in the examination. Don't get nervous. It's a matter of how you manage your nerves in the examination. जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको कोई टॉपिक पता नहीं है तो उसका आंसर आपको आ नहीं सकता। यूपीएससी में ये सोचना छोड़ दो कि आपको कोई चीज पता नहीं है तो उसका आंसर भी आपको पता नहीं रहेगा। प्रीलिम्स में स्पेशली, as I have demonstrated quite amply in the recent past also, power of elimination and method of derivation, these are the two things that you should employ rigorously. And how to practice that? Practice that during our case studies, test series. The more test series that you practice here at Asia, the better you'll get. It is my promise to you guys that if you do it next year, nobody can stop you from scoring in excess of 120 or 130 marks in your prelims. It's just a matter of how much time you're spending with your MCQs, which were covered during your test series. And we are there, we are here. This is a hand-holding exercise where we are trying to give you the best of the lot. We are trying to give you all brands and all types of questions. We are trying to improve the range of your knowledge through these questions. So it suggests that you take this test series very seriously, and every question should be discussed threadbare, even if it is with your friends, because that will highly enrich the kind of knowledge that you will have at the end of your preparation process. You will feel extremely uber confident at the end of, I think, the month of April. So in May, you can go for your thorough revision. Moving on. So there's a question on economic development of steppe region. अब ऐसे क्वेश्चंस में कोचिंग लियोंग बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है, आपका रीडिंग बहुत ज़रूरी है, बिकॉज स्टेपे जो रीजन होता है उसके बारे में अगर आपको पता करना है तो आपको बुक ही पढ़ना पड़ेगा। नोमैडिक हर्डिंग बाय Kyrgyz and Tatar tribe, extensive mechanical rice cultivation, pastoral farming due to large availability of quality grass. So the option says that 1 and 2 are right and option 3 is wrong. Okay, so the question is, moving along, I can see that there are some questions on delta formation, there are some questions on fluvial deposits, there are some questions on steppe formation. Coaching Leong, as I said, I will over and over emphasize on that Coaching Leong is your go-to book. Go there, read it, get your concepts checked thoroughly, verify them. Once you come back to the test, you'll feel even more confident. Now, geysers and hot springs are closely associated with volcanic region. I'm talking about question number 47, guys, here. Geysers and hot springs are closely associated with volcanic origin. The world's best known hot springs is Old Faithful. See, the correct answer is both. अब होता क्या है? Statement number 2, the world's best known hot spring is Old Faithful. इतना अगर स्पेसिफिक यूपीएससी कोई आपको ऑप्शन दे रहा है, मतलब 60 to 70% चांस है कि ये सही होगा। होता यह है कि इतना अगर स्पेसिफिसिटी किसी क्वेश्चन में अगर वो इंजेक्ट कर रहे हैं, that in itself means कि ये क्वेश्चन का मतलब this statement is right. because they don't really expect you to know everything date wise, names wise, place wise. They want you to understand things from an analytical point of view and from a concept point of view. So I really don't think that they would test you based on your factual knowledge. And if at all they give you a question like this old faithful wala question, I think it's fairly simple to assume, it's fairly safe to assume that ये सही होगा. चलो इस assumption के साथ हम आगे बढ़ते हैं. Geysers and hot springs are closely associated with volcanic origins. Geysers and hot springs के बारे में पता करने के लिए आपको NCERTs पढ़ने पड़ेंगे. ठीक है? They are closely associated with volcanic origins obviously because hot water आ रहा है. अब पानी इतना hot कैसे हो सकता है कि the water is oozing out of the landform or the water is coming out in a gushing manner. Why is the water gushing out of the earth's bed? Is because under the टेम्परेचर ग्रेडियंट एंड प्रेशर ग्रेडियंट. ये टेम्परेचर ग्रेडियंट और प्रेशर ग्रेडियंट क्रिएट कब होता है? वो तब क्रिएट होता है जहां पे लावा एक्टिविटी ज्यादा होगी. लावा एक्टिविटी ज्यादा होगी तो कन्वेक्शन करंट ज्यादा रहेंगे और उसी के कारण जो है हीट ट्रांसफर ज्यादा होता है. तो जो ग्राउंड वाटर है उसको हीट ट्रांसफर एक बार हो गया तो प्रेशर ग्रेडियंट के चेंज होने की वजह से या टेम्परेचर ग्रेडियंट की वजह से द वाटर विल गश आउट, स्पेशली इन टर्म्स ऑफ geysers. In terms of hot springs, although it won't gush out, but it will give the water a very significantly hot temperature. अगर आप मणिकरण जाएंगे मनाली के पास में तो वहां पे भी आपको हॉट स्प्रिंग्स मिलेंगे. वहां पे जो नदी आ रही है, आई थिंक इट इज, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग, इट इज रावी और बियास रिवर, एंड उसी के बगल में आप मणिकरण में देखेंगे विच इज अ रिलीजियस टूरिस्ट स्पॉट नियर मनाली. वहां पे लोग आते हैं एंड दे actually take a dip in that pond. It's considered to have healing properties. Now it is not a matter of superstition or rituals. Actually, because of high levels of sodium content and other minerals, since that water is so mineral rich, because it is coming from the belly of the earth and already it is hot, it does have some therapeutic properties, and therefore you have hot springs over there. अभी अगर इस और क्वेश्चन इसके ऊपर क्यों आएगा, जरूरी देखिए ज्योग्राफी में पूछने के लिए तो बहुत कुछ है, मगर कुछ ही चीजें क्यों पूछेंगे, बिकॉज वो चीजें अभी न्यूज में है. बिकॉज geysers and hot springs could be used to harness geothermal energy, and we are moving towards an era of clean energy, right? India has already submitted its INDCs, intended nationally determined contributions, wherein we are moving towards renewable power and clean power. So in that sense, after solar and wind, the other option left for us to harness power in a clean manner would be geothermal energy and tidal energy as well. In terms of that, geysers and hot springs come in very handy. Although we don't have the technological capacity to do it right now, but yes, research is going on, and there are a lot of projects coming along which are going to economize the whole harnessing process in a geothermal manner. That therefore हो सकता है कि geysers और hot springs ऊपर क्वेश्चन आ जाए. Randomly कुछ नहीं पूछते, अगर कुछ पूछना है तो उसका कुछ ना कुछ मतलब या रीजन होना चाहिए. So be aware of your surroundings, know what is coming in the papers. You use your print media and digital media judiciously and prudently. That is my one advice to you. Again, we can see that there are some questions on earthquakes, epicenter, faults. Earthquakes, epicenters and faults, I did not mention that they are very essential. Earthquakes, volcanoes is explicitly mentioned in your main syllabus also. Moving along, we see that there are some questions on, again I can see some questions on volcanic origins, Mount Kilimanjaro, then there are what are shield volcanoes, what are plates. So question number 56 is basically a current affairs question. It's about South China Sea and surrounded by which countries. GS paper 2 2016 मेंस आज ही हुआ है और उसी में साउथ चाइना सी के ऊपर भी क्वेश्चन आ चुका है. So I think I need not say that, need not stress enough on the fact that South China Sea becomes really very important from all the angles, from prelims perspective as well as from mains perspective. हो सकता है कि ये सब चीजें ना आपको पूछे, हो सकता है कि which of these islands is not a part of South China Sea, Paracels, partly, and so on and so forth. So आपको वहाँ पे जो 3-4 islands है, based on which the battle of sovereignty is going on right now, I think it's better, it's well advised that you go through that as well. So they might ask you something based on those lines. South China Sea is a geographical thing, but it has a huge geostrategic significance. It is about maritime. It is about maritime channels also. It is about exploring rare earth metals also. So anything could be asked from that part of the world, and I think it's high time that if you haven't, then you go back to South China Sea and you read 3-4 good articles. You also go through your maps and locate where South China Sea is. Then there is some questions on facholiths and batholiths. They are associated with intrusive and extrusive igneous rocks. एक बहुत अच्छा डायग्राम दिया हुआ है गोचिंग लियोंग में, जहाँ पे उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से इलिस्ट्रेट किया है what are batholiths and patholiths, उनके सारों के शेप्स एंड साइजेस देखिए, और उस हिसाब से आप एक टेबल या चार्ट बना सकते हैं, या सिंपली स्पीकिंग उसी की एक फोटो लेके प्रिंट आउट लेके आप आपके कबर्ड में चिपका दीजिए. I don't think you'll ever forget what is the definition of these terms ever in your life. So climatic regions पे कुछ questions हैं. Then you have question number 61, Indo-Gangetic alluvial tract, the run of Kutch highly vulnerable to earthquake. Peninsular India is free from seismic activities. So the correct answer would be only one, that is Indo-Gangetic alluvial tract and the run of Kutch are highly vulnerable to earthquake. Peninsular India is not free from seismic activities, जैसे कि कोयना earthquake जो 1967 में हुआ था और लातूर earthquake 1993 में हुआ था. ये दोनों जगह ना महाराष्ट्र में आती है, महाराष्ट्र is a big part of Maharashtra falls in the peninsular block of India. So statement 2 is definitely not right. अब आपको पता है कि statement 2 is not right. When you know this, when you are so certain about it, you can easily eliminate it and you can say that only one is correct. And Indo-Gangetic alluvial tract and run of Kutch are highly vulnerable to earthquake. We had Gujarat earthquake, if you remember. So अगर गुजरात earthquake की बात हम करें तो रन ऑफ कच्छ के पास में आता है, तो obviously it is vulnerable to earthquake. This was a simple question. It just requires you to exercise your mental faculties, stretch your mental faculties, stretch your memory. I don't think there's a problem in answering questions like these. This is essentially what UPSC will also test. Not the depth of your knowledge, it will test the range of your knowledge. So next question, question number 62. In South Africa, the grasslands are sandwiched between Kalahari Desert and Drakensberg. Climate in temperate continental regions is extreme. Both the answers are correct. It's a little bit of factual information and concept based. So I advise you to again refer your NCRTs and coaching Leon's. Once you do that, this question becomes fairly simple. One reading would be enough to answer a question like that. और जब आप करेंगे, so just don't go through South Africa grasslands. Go through bushes, wells, what are prairies, what are steppes, और 5 lines में उनके ऊपर notes बना के रखिए आप. और उसी 5 lines में से ही question आने वाला है. Doesn't mean that आपने 5 liner बनाया है तो you have to ratify it. Memorize करने का कोई जरूरत नहीं है. All you have to do, guys, is just keep on reading it over and over again. Okay, so just put it in your wallet, put it in your phone, take a screenshot, do whatever you want to do. But at the end of the day, your eyes should roll over such material at least once in 3 days. Once that happens, it will be embedded in your memory. Once you commit that to your memory will not betray you during your examination. So for such questions, it's not just about South African grasslands, it's about prairies, steppes, taigas, tundras, everything. So make notes and be ready for such questions. एक question आएगा and cost benefit analysis इसका ज़्यादा है. So I think I would suggest you to go through this. Japan और seaweed cultivation के ऊपर question था. Again current affairs based है. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. So basically this was in the news very recently, and since it was in the news, we have put it in the paper. Find out more about what is seaweed cultivation. Find out more about rice and where it is cultivated across the globe. Okay. Glaciers के बारे में नया next question है, which of the following glacier is not located in the Karakoram range? Saichen, Baltoro, Hipsar and Sonapani. The answer would be Sonapani to that. Okay. So again, glaciers and their associated ranges. If you ask me, personally speaking, Marty Hussain has given a good list of such glaciers and their associated ranges. Just need to go through that. It's again a matter of committing the matter to your memory. Read it twice or thrice. I don't think you should have a problem. Moving on. Time zones के ऊपर कुछ question है. This is just to give you a brief understanding of कि time zones कौन से होते हैं, किस तरह क्या होता है, कौन सी countries में कितने time zones है. ठीक है, तो ये क्वेश्चन ऐसा नहीं है कि जरूरी. This is again a very unlikely question to be asked in UPSC. This is for your enrichment of your knowledge, so that कहीं ना कहीं आपके किसी ना किसी क्वेश्चन में काम में आ जाए. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये क्वेश्चन इसी फॉर्मेट में आएगा, बट हो सकता है कि ऑस्ट्रेलिया के टाइम जोन्स के बारे में कुछ पूछ लिया जाए या यूएस के टाइम जोन्स के बारे में कुछ पूछ लिया जाए, दैट it is a country with multi time zones, or it is a country which has time zones in double digit. So in that case you need to know that US has 11 time zones. अब आप सोचेंगे फ्रांस में तो बहुत कम टाइम जोन्स हो सकते हैं बिकॉज फ्रांस इज जोग्राफिकली वेरी स्मॉल, बट फ्रांस में 12 टाइम जोन्स फॉलो किए जाते हैं. सो ऐसी सब इंफॉर्मेशन आपके पास रहेगी तो आप कभी फेल नहीं हो सकते आपके गेस्टिमेट, राइट? बिकॉज अगर साइज के हिसाब से देखेंगे तो यूएस में इट्स legible, it's legitimate that it has more time zones. But France, because it is very close to Greenwich Mean Time, which passes through London, therefore it has a lot of time zones. So I would advise you again to actually commit this kind of information to your memory so that you are not flummoxed. नहीं तो अगर आपको पता नहीं होगा तो होगा ये कि आप यूएस के बारे में तो सही डिड्यूस कर लेंगे, but you won't be able to deduce correctly about France, and that is where you go wrong. Okay. Moving along, shrub plantations, then there is something about atmospheric circulation. I think such questions are based on climatology, and climatology has to be understood from a deeper point of view, from understanding point of view. Coaching, Leong and NCRT, again, buzzwords, go back, read them, get these answers right. This year also they asked something about the southwest monsoon winds, if I'm not wrong, and they also asked something about dry deciduous and moist deciduous forests. So for questions like these, NCRTs would be enough, but confuse karenge. These are confusing in nature, so over and over read them again and go through our questions thoroughly. So moving along, I can see that some currents, ocean currents are also included in your papers. Ocean currents are a very important aspect in the world geography. Ocean currents originate near the continents. Some are hot, some are cold, depending on which hemisphere they are in, southern hemisphere and northern hemisphere. So obviously this is the match the following type of question. Kuroshio would be warm, Labrador would be cold. ये सारी चीजें दी गई है. Incorrect आपको करा है इसमें लाना है. तो Gulf Stream is generally not cold. Okay, ठीक है. Then there are some questions regarding deserts. Deserts को आप एक काम कीजिए, locate them on a map. गोबी डेजर्ट कहाँ आएगा, सहारा कहाँ आएगा, एटामा कहाँ आएगा, मोहावे कहाँ आएगा. As a matter of fact, Atacama Desert is the driest desert in the world. Sahara Desert is the largest desert in the world, right? So Gobi Desert is in Mongolia and China. ऐसे लोकेशंस आपको पता होने चाहिए, उनका एक्सटेंट आपको पता होना चाहिए, उनका कंट्री आपको पता होनी चाहिए. It could be deserts, it could be big glaciers, it could be big rivers, these landforms and their associated countries. You should have a list of that, and this is a year-long exercise, so it will go on till the next May. Don't expect कि 15 दिन में आपका सब कुछ हो जाएगा. रोज 5-5, 10-10 मिनट भी अगर आपने इन्वेस्ट किए इसके ऊपर, so that would be enough. I don't think you require much more than that. Moving along, there are some questions regarding hot wet equatorial climate, and there are some diagrammatic representations about glaciers and what are crevices and all of that. आपने अगर मूवी देखी होगी वर्टिकल लिमिट, तो उसमें crevices काफी दिखाया है, and the usage of that word is also there. आपने एवरेस्ट, एक बहुत रिसेंटली एक मूवी आई है 2015 में एवरेस्ट, उसमें भी crevices दिखाए गए हैं. So if you've gone through those movies, you would understand that ये crevices ही इसका आंसर हो सकता है, because हमने क्वेश्चन सिंप्लीफाई किया है, आपको एक इमेज देके. Whenever there is an image, although यूपीएससी में तो इमेज पूछेंगे नहीं, they'll give you a question statement, मगर हमने इमेज इसलिए डाला है because we want you to have a clear understanding of what crevices are, because many lives are lost every year during mountain expeditions to crevices, and therefore that's also in the news, by the way, quite a lot. Therefore it was essential, we thought that you should have a understanding of what crevices are, and that's why it finds a mention in the paper. Again, there is a question on temperature gradient, and there's again a question on Roche Mountains. All these things are readily available in your NCRTs, readily available in your coaching Leongs. See, mental imageries will always help you. Which of the following statements are correct regarding the mid-latitude desert climate? This region has more rainfall. This desert also known, this is a desert that is also known as the trade wind deserts. Aridity of these deserts is mainly due to the effect of offshore trade winds. The answer is 2 and 3. 1. This region has more rainfall is definitely not correct, because we are talking about mid-latitude desert climate. In the mid latitudes, we have some bit of rainfall, and therefore it's not near, since it's not near the equator, unlike sub-Saharan Africa, it's mid latitude. That means what? That means that it will receive some form of precipitation. There will be some form of moisture bearing clouds, and therefore there will be some formation of rain. So one is definitely wrong, and one finds a mention in all the other three options. So by the method of elimination, what you can do is you can easily arrive at 2 and 3 as the correct answer. So there are certain questions regarding Mediterranean climate, hotbed equatorial climate, Sudan climate, all types of climates you should know from a detailed point of view. Now we're talking about, in question number 85, we're talking about Mediterranean Sea, Bering Sea, Yellow Sea, and Andaman Sea. Okay, understand one thing. What's the question? Arrange the following sea from west to east. Now you have to arrange everything from west to east. Which would be the easternmost end? The easternmost end, if you look at the map, would be Bering Sea near Russia. Now, where would you find Yellow Sea? It would be near China. And where would you find Andaman Sea? Obviously near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Mediterranean Sea obviously is the dividing line, or the sea that separates Africa from northern Africa from southern Europe. So Mediterranean Sea would be the westernmost point, and Bering Sea would be the easternmost point. And they have asked us to arrange it from west to east. So which is the westernmost point? Mediterranean. So one is the westernmost point. So A या C आंसर रह सकता है. And which is the easternmost point? Bering Sea. मैप पे बहुत clearly आपको मिल जाएगा. It's in bold letters. रशिया के पास देखिए. So 2 would be the easternmost point. So Yellow Sea और Andaman Sea का relative positioning पता ना भी रहे, तो भी you can easily answer this question. Again, what we have done is we have used our method of elimination here. We have derived at this answer. We have come to this answer by just knowing a simple fact that Mediterranean and Bering are at the extreme ends. Moving along, I can see that there's a question on Gulf of Thailand. Again, a current affairs based question, although looks from the realm of geography, but Gulf of Thailand was in the news very recently. You should know its geographical location, and is surrounded by which country? So it's surrounded by Cambodia and Thailand. Okay, so you have to be very careful. ये जितने भी gulfs होते हैं, sea होते हैं, especially enclosed seas जो होते हैं, इनके neighboring countries कौन से हैं, boundaries कौन से हैं, ये आपको सबको जानना पड़ेगा. Again, maps come in very handy. Geography में अगर 10 से 12 भी question आता है पेपर में, तो at least half of them, 50% of them could be solved by just using maps. So keep looking at your maps every day. Make it a ritual. Make it a practice. Like brushing your teeth in the morning is a ritual. Make looking at the map looking also a ritual of your life. You could do that anytime you want. You could do that when you're taking a walk in your house. You could do that while you're exercising in your house. You can do that while you're just moving from one room to another, or you could just do that while brushing your teeth. You just make it a part of your daily lifestyle, guys. Just make it a part of your daily lifestyle. Map reading for 10 minutes. You will get maximum number of geography related questions correct in your examination, and that will have a huge impact on your selection or your rejection. Okay, so be very careful about maps. Moving on, I can see that there are some questions as related to Mediterranean climate, and then there are some questions related to again oranges के ऊपर एक question आया है. Again, oranges were in the news very recently. They found a mention in the newspapers. Therefore, we have put a question like this. Although I would concede that this is a very tough question. Either you know this or you don't know this. So we were not expecting you guys to answer it. All we were expecting is that you make an attempt, and even if you don't make an attempt, this will help you in your revision purposes, because this belongs to the syllabus of World Economic Geography. I'd suggest that since the correct answer is one only, I'd suggest that you also find about Jaffa and Seville. Seville is a place in Spain. Okay, so it's not correctly matched. Seville is matched against Israel. It should be matched against Spain. If you are a big football fan, you would know that there is a football club by the name Seville, right? So obviously, you could have used that bit of information to deduce that 2 and 3 are matched wrongly. So what is left is first. Okay. So moving on, let's look at other questions. The next question is about the savanna grass. It talks about elephant grass, whether it is available in savanna region or not. Now this is given in your NCRTs and also your coaching Leong, so I don't think this is a question that needs a further discussion. I think you can skip this question, the explanation of this question, and move along. So see, there's a question on cereals, and which also has an element of transhumance in this. Now understand one thing, that cereals are important as regards the food security of the world is concerned, and therefore it is very likely that a question based on cereals or oats would appear in the examination because that's a new trend. Transhumance, the definition of transhumance is given at the back of your NCRTs. So they might ask you about whether transhumance is prevalent in Mediterranean region and other regions also. So you need to be careful about the definitions and how those definitions are to be related with your climatic regions. So moving along, then there's another question regarding Java and Sumatra. This is again a straightforward question, map-based question. We have decided, we chose to include some wines in our paper because obviously since we are ending, we should end with a bang, right? So wineries is coming up in a big way, okay, and that culture is also prevalent in the Nashik region of Maharashtra today. That forms an important part of the food processing industry as well as winemaking, and therefore has a lot of scope to be asked in the examination. What we have done is we have tried to name the wine and the associated countries. So you can go through this. This is a question which is based on trivia, based on facts. So we're trying to introduce such questions in the test series so as you understand what kind of questions could be asked. I'm asking you about wines, but you might be asked about other beverages. You might be asked about open beer breweries. You might be asked about the orange or the mango fruit processing industries. So when you talk about wine, you should list out other associated aspects also, and then see where they are produced. Okay. So moving along, the last question is about seas, and you have to arrange them from the west to east order. So the correct order would be Mediterranean, then you come to Andaman, then Yellow, and then Bering Sea. Okay. So यहाँ पे this is a completely map-based question. You would get the right answer only just by knowing the fact that Mediterranean Sea is situated or is locked up between Africa and your southern European continent, as well as you need to understand that Bering Sea is on the top of Russia. Once I say that, it becomes clear that it must become the easternmost point on the map, right? So you need not know the difference or the relative positionings of the Yellow Sea and Andaman Sea to arrive at the correct answer. There are many such questions which will appear also in the UPSC, wherein probably you will have a locational understanding of about 2 to 3 things or about only one thing. Based on that also you can solve questions. So I would suggest that since we've come to the end of the discussion on test 2, I would suggest that you go through your maps specifically in an extensive manner, and once you're done with that, you keep on revising them. You can use markers, you can use post-it notes. I hope that you have World Atlas somewhere pasted in your room. You just keep looking at it. You could decide on a given continent on a given day. So you could just get up in the morning and say, ask yourself, what do I know about Australia? And just keep looking at Australia for 5 to 10 minutes. You can, the next day, you can follow it up with a brief speculation or brief investigation of the Asian continent. So if you do that on a regular basis, map questions become a cakewalk for you, and they're highly scoring, and the chances to get your answers wrong is very less. Okay. So I would suggest that map reading becomes an integral part of your UPSC preparation. So guys, with this, we've come to the end of the discussion, online discussion of test 2 on world geography. Thank you for visiting AHR's IS Institute. I'd definitely see you in the next edition of our online discussion. Till then, happy reading. Good night. Take care.